Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess listeners. The FIDE Candidates Tournament is almost here. This is a mega preview featuring a few guests. I'm getting super excited for the tournament, which kicks off on April 4th in Toronto, Canada. It's nice to have the tournament in North America. Unfortunately, I will not be attending, but I am super excited to follow it, and we'll be discussing it in detail with my lineup of guests. Before we get to that, I wanted to go over some of the basic facts of the tournament for those less familiar or who haven't looked up all the tiebreak rules du jour and so on and so forth. But first, I wanted to give thanks to our sponsor, Chessable.com. Obviously, they've got a huge catalog of courses to help your chess. Some of the newest include famed bullet/blitz wizard Grandmaster Bortnick is out with a course on the Alyekin. He's trying to bring back the Alyekin, a sometimes frowned upon opening that he manages to make work when he's tangling with Magnus and all the other blitz beasts. Peter Lecoq and Maurice Ashley have courses coming out in early April, so maybe out by the time you get this. And of course, be sure to check out Chessable Pro, which if you subscribe to, you get discounts on some courses. You're able to use Puzzle Connect to incorporate your chess.com account with Chessable and review any mistakes that you make. And if you use the link in the show description to sign up for Chessable Pro, it helps to support Perpetual Chess. Now, as for the FIDE candidates, again, very excited for this event. Starts April 4th. The format is what's called a double round robin, which basically means in both the men's section / open section, it's, technically anyone can play, but this year it's all men, and the women's section, it's an 8-person round robin where everyone plays everyone twice. So a double round robin, the highest cumulative score, earns a chance to play for the world champion. Chip. So earns a chance to challenge Ding Liren or challenge Zhu Wenjun, and there's prizes on top of that as well. So it's 1 game per day. There are some rest days sprinkled in as well. The rounds are at 14:30 local time, meaning 2:30 p.m. New York time. So adjust accordingly to figure out what time you can watch them. So these are long games. This is classical chess. The time control for the match is you get 120 minutes for the first 40 moves, followed by 30 more minutes for the rest of the game. And after move 40, there's also a 30-second increment. So the games can easily go 4 to 5 hours. In fact, they encourage them to, because there is a rule this year where players cannot draw by agreement before move 41. Before I get to the tiebreak format, I also wanted to mention that as I record this on April 19th, it's all systems go with the candidates. For a period, there was a scare where some of the players, it was unclear if they were going to be able to get visas, and they were talking about an alternate site in Spain. Again, at last I've heard, all of that is ironed out, and the players will be good to go for the FIDE candidates. I did see that Grandmaster Surya Kanguli, who has been working with one of the contestants, Grandmaster Vidit Gujirathi, he at some point was having some visa issues. So there may be some minor issues with seconds or staff or media or stuff like that in terms of acquiring a visa and getting into the country. But as far as I have last heard, the players are all good to go, and it should make for a very good theater. Speaking of theater, so if it does go to tie breaks, which according to Tai Pruce Zimmerman, as you will hear in the second segment, will happen about 20% of the time, the format for the tie breaks is it will be settled on the board. For the first tie break is rapid playoff. So if it's a 2-person tie, there would be a 2-game match of 15 minutes per side with a 10-second increment. And if there's a winner from that, boom, it's over. We have our candidate winner. If it's still tied, then they go to 3 minutes with 2-second increment 2-game match. And if it's still tied after that, then they would go to single 3-minute games. They draw for color. There's no Armageddon. So they just draw for color. And the first person to win in 3-minute chess wins the match. If there's more than 2 people tied, they also have provisions in place for that. And in that case, the rapid portion would be a round robin. I'll link to FIDE's rules and regulations in case you want to go deeper. But bottom line is, if it does end up being tied, it should be pretty entertaining, even though it will not, in that case, be settled by classical chess. So the prizes, obviously, the big prizes are the chance to play for the World Championship, which usually has a healthy prize fund, as well as sort of an opportunity to change the trajectory of your chess career, to write your place in chess history. But there's cash prizes on top of that. First place in the open section is 48,000 euros. And in the women's section, it is 24,000 euros. And the prizes go down from there. The event will be broadcast both by FIDE and by chess.com. FIDE has announced that their broadcast team will be Viswanathan Anand, Irina Krush, and then as I record this, just yesterday, they announced that Chessbrah Grandmaster Aman Hambleton will also be joining the team in the second half of the match. Obviously, the Chessbrahs are going to be doing all kinds of events, being that it's in their home country of Canada. So for those who are able to attend, I'm sure that adds to the festivities. Chess.com has a great team lined up as well. Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky, Grandmaster Robert Hess, I am Tanya Sachdev, Grandmaster Peter Lecoq, and then they will also have additional TBD guests on top of that, so should be pretty entertaining. As for Perpetual Chess, I will be covering the candidates the way that I typically do, meaning we're still going to have regular Tuesday episodes that are recorded in advance, and they will not be discussing the candidates. They will be discussing the broader chess world. But on two of the rest days, on April 12th and April 19th, I hope to release bonus pods. Ideally, we'll be discussing the tournament with an illustrious guest or two. I do always follow it closely and always follow it, always find it very compelling. And then when the tournament's over, we will also be releasing a wrap-up pod to discuss what we will then know is the World Championship match. Who will be taking on Ding Liren? What surprises did we see in terms of openings and drama? Who knows whatever drama is going to unfold, as well as the women's section. So I'm about ready to get you to our segments. As always, the timestamps for each guest are in the show description, so feel free to hop around to topics discussed. First up is seven-time Brazilian champion, Grandmaster Rafael Leitao. He often does the Game of the Day feature for chess.com, does an amazing job, and has his finger on the pulse of elite chess as he's writing. I don't know how many, but something like annotating 150 top-level games per year. So with Rafael, we go player by player, take a big picture look at the candidates. After that, as per tradition, I am joined by Tai Pruce Zimmerman, better known as Chess by the Numbers. Tai has a probabilistic model based on ELO ratings, where he's able to not only give you the probabilities that a certain player is going to win before the tournament, but he updates them throughout the tournament. And in fact, we'll be sharing that info both on his personal Twitter/X account and with chess.com for their coverage as the match goes on. So Tai and I take a look at the data, what both his numbers say, as well as some discussion of the betting markets that we were able to find. And then my third guest is on the Queen side, who does a tremendous job covering women's chess, both on Twitter/X and on the Chess blog. So we get into the women's section in particular, storylines to watch. Of course, we all made picks in the various sections, even though we all have no idea who's going to win. That's what makes it so compelling. And in fact, the candidates, as I discussed with Tai, has been especially unpredictable as far as top tournaments go. I don't know if it's because of the nerves or just, happenstance, but it always tends to surprise. So it may look like this is Fabiano's year. He is certainly a force to be reckoned with, but you never know what's going to happen, and we certainly have some young upstarts ready to challenge. So without further personal babbling, I would like to get you to my conversations with our lineup of guests. So stay tuned. First up is Grandmaster Rafael Leitao, and then we will take it from there. I hope you guys enjoy this preview pod, and I hope you all enjoy the FIDE candidates. Let's get you to it. And we are here with a return guest. He is the 7-time Brazilian champion, 2-time world youth champion back in the day, a grandmaster and correspondence grandmaster. He often annotates the game of the day in chess.com's news coverage, and I always enjoy his annotations. And of course, that gives him unique insights into the playing characteristics of all of these top players. So I am very excited to welcome back to the podcast Grandmaster Rafael Leitao. Welcome, Rafael.
Thanks, Ben. It's a pleasure to be talking to you again. Long time we don't talk.
Exactly, too long.
Yeah.
So for listeners who have not heard our first interview, it's way back in 2019, but we go through Rafael's whole illustrious career. And as I mentioned in my book, and as we talk about then, Rafael is a keen chess historian. He's got some hot takes in that regard. He's got some great stories. So definitely recommend listeners go and check that out among Rafael's other content, his YouTube channel, his blog, etc. Tons of great stuff. But Rafael, of course, the order of the day as we record here on March 18th is the FIDE candidates coming right up in a couple of weeks. And the first thing I'm wondering, Rafael, because I know how I feel, and I'll get to that, but how do you feel about this candidates compared to others? Does it lose any luster without Magnus, or are you getting excited nonetheless?
No, I'm really excited to this tournament because it's probably one of the most equal fields I've seen in the candidates tournament. Like everybody really can win, apart from Abasov. I think even him don't believe so much that he can win the tournament. So I'm not saying anything disrespectful. But apart from him, I think anyone can win this tournament. Of course, well, there are 2 or 3 favorites. But anyone can win, and the players have a very fighting style, so I expect a lot of emotions during this tournament. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I'm equally excited, I have to say. The fact that Magnus is not waiting at the end, I love watching Magnus in action. Obviously, his legacy speaks for itself, but the fact that the person they're playing, let's be real, is a bit more vulnerable to being beaten than Magnus, actually, to me, kind of maybe even adds to the luster. So yeah, it loses nothing for me, and I agree with what you said about it being super competitive.
Yeah, the thing is, okay, Magnus, it would be more interesting, of course, if Magnus was the world champion, because we wanted to see, especially against the newer generation, suppose he plays against Firouzja or Praggnanandhaa, say one name, it would be a really interesting match. And also because, Jinglier has not been played well after becoming world champion. Something strange has happened to him. He's not been able to play very well. So, I mean, the candidate is more interesting at the moment than the real match, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so we're recording this again Monday, March 18th. And last night I recorded already a segment that will air after you on this podcast with Chess by the Numbers, talking about the data. And Tai made me realize that the candidates, the top rated player pretty rarely wins in recent history in these candidates. So as you say, it's a relatively level playing field to begin with, but the fact that so often we have quote unquote upsets makes it all the more compelling to watch this chess history unfold.
Yeah, but if we go for this side, then we have to disregard the fact that for a player to win 3 times the candidates tournament in a row, it's nearly impossible also, according to statistics, right? So in this point, we have to disregard like Caruana and also Nepomniatchtchi. So
right.
I don't know who else, but yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, both are candidates, but
yeah, if that's true, then it's really wide open. But anyway, Rafael, without further ado, I thought what we would do, per tradition, as I've done in previous candidates previews, is take it player by player. And when I did a preview a couple years back with Grandmaster Robert Hess, I also shared a fun fact about each player. So it's getting harder to find fun facts about some of these players, but I've got one for each, and I am ready to dive in if you are. Are you ready for me to hit you with the first player, Rafael?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and these are in no particular order, just the order I put them in my outline. So first up, we have Ian Nepomniatchtchi, 33 years of age. He is not representing a country due to what's going on with Russia invading Ukraine. If you're nominally representing Russia, then you are not allowed to compete. And of course, Nepo did sign a letter protesting the war, but he also has some sort of business dealings where he's been sponsored by companies that are closely affiliated with Putin in the past. So it's all a bit messy, but the chess speaks for itself, as Hans Niemann says. So live rating 2758 as we record this, and has won the past two. Fun fact is his grandfather, Boris Yosevich Nepomniatchtchi, was a famous teacher and lyricist in Bryansk, where he grew up. So, Rafael, so you think it's going to be hard for him to win it a third time in a row, I gather?
Yeah, I think, first of all, if we ignore this fact, then of course Nepomniatchtchi is one of the favorites. In my list, probably the second favorite to win this tournament. And well, he has shown before that he can do it. But yeah, to win 3 times the candidates tournament in a row, I mean, who nobody managed to do this, right? Or maybe Korchnoi, he managed several times to become the candidate for World Championship. Ismislov also did 3 times, I think. Yeah, but not in a row. I mean, this is certainly not as difficult than beating Magnus in a match, but apart from this, it's one of the most difficult things you can do in chess, to win such a tournament 3 times in a row. So that's really hard, but well, Nepomniatchtchi won the last candidates tournament very convincingly. And I believe he can do it. He's going to be very well prepared. And if the tournament goes his way in the beginning, then he's a very serious contender. But we all know that he's prone to tilting.
Right.
Yeah. For instance, people forget how hard his match against Carlsen was going. At least people here in Brazil, they constantly say, "Wow, that match was a walkover. It was very easy," and they forget the match was really tough, and that fateful 6th game could easily have gone Nepomniachtchi's way. And then he lost that game, and the problem is that he can crack. And if he managed to keep together things and start well the tournament, then he really can be the winner, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, he got that big lead in the most recent candidates and managed to hold on. And as you say, I mean, a lot about his operation, sort of any psychological issues about tilting or playing too impulsively at times aside, there's a lot of very professional things about his operation. He tends to have a good budget behind him, world-class trainers, solid opening prep, and obviously not going to be scared by the bright lights given his previous success. Now, Rafael, let me ask you, as someone who's obviously annotating games of Nepos and the other luminaries we'll be discussing so often, is it even possible to begin to sort of make predictions about what openings players like Nepo are going to play? Or given, their ability to switch, is it too hard these days?
No, I think with Black, he's going to play what he's playing right now. It's especially against the King's Pawn. I don't see any reason for him to deviate from the Petrov or Russian defense that he's been playing lately. He has been playing it very successfully, so I think he'll probably keep this defense against Queen's Pawn. He may, play a lot of things, and also with White, I think he's going to play mainly the King's Pawn that is in his heart, but he can also play other openings as he has shown in the previous candidates, but especially. I mean, players will have to show something against the Petrov, who is going to play e4 against him. And I'm not sure what they are going to do. Maybe the bishop's opening or trying to find something, because nobody has been showing anything against him. But Caruana, for instance, for one, certainly has his ideas.
Yeah, I mean, Caruana obviously having played the Petrov himself a bunch in the past, but yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. So it'll be interesting. Maybe people will steer towards D4, but yeah, I agree that Nepo in particular, like it's not broke, so why would he fix it? I mean, maybe obviously players need sort of a weapon where in case they need to win with black for later in the tournament. And obviously he's played the Najdorf and many other openings, the French, etc. So and there's also the D4 complex to think about. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But
as you said, as you said, he has a pretty high budget. He's been sponsored by everybody in Russia. So yeah, like he has a huge team. So he is expected to show very good preparation as he has shown in the previous candidates. So I think he'll be on par with the very best. I mean, with Caruana, I believe is the best. And it's going to be hard to break him in the openings. I think a better strategy is try to lure him into more positional play, slower play, and try to make him make a mistake later in the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I believe, and he plays Abasov with black in the first round. So what you mentioned about his propensity he can be a sort of front runner if he gets off to a good start. If he can take Abasov down with black, which is, a decent pairing, to be honest. It could be the past all over again, at least in the early going. But it's a long tournament.
It can work the other way also, right?
That's true.
Because Abasov is very dangerous, as he has shown in the World Cup. And we don't know what to expect from him. And the lower rated players, we usually say, or at least when I used to play in closed tournaments, I'd rather pick them up in the middle of the tournament or after a few rounds, because sometimes they have had a few bad results and they are feeling, more insecure with low confidence. In the first round, I don't know if it's so good to play against him, because especially with white, he will feel confident and he's eager to surprise everybody. So I'm not so sure about it.
Oh, that's an interesting insight. Yeah, that actually makes some sense. And maybe if you get them later, their confidence might be a bit beat up. And since you've already delved into Abasov, I'm gonna give his biographical details next, and we can you can share any other thoughts. So Nijat Abasov, 28 years of age, from Azerbaijan, 2631 rated as we record this, which puts him just outside of the top 100. So the only player who's not in the top 100 by a long shot. Of course, he earned his spot through getting 4th place in the World Cup. So he actually wouldn't have been here if Magnus didn't decline his spot in the candidates. So an alternate in that sense. And the fun fact is, as I was Googling and looking stuff up about Abasov, he's the only candidate entrant with a Elite Chess coaches page, which sort of speaks volumes to his career track compared to the elite that he's knocking heads with and the young prodigies. He's obviously he's a fantastic player, but has not been on that level. But so do you think he has the capacity to surprise, Rafael?
Well, I think in a sense, yes. Like, for instance, a surprise win in the first round against Nepo, this kind of surprise, I think. But it's more or less clear to me that the tournament is going to be difficult for him. And I don't believe he will be in the upper side of the cross table. I think he is clearly, his rating shows that he is clearly the weakest player in the field. But he has shown in the World Cup that he is able to fight against them. But let's not forget that the World Cup is a different kind of tournament, also more prone to these kind of things, because when you play 2 games against the same opponent, and also the player who loses goes straight to home, so they're not really so worried about being beaten during a long tournament. So it's easier for a surprise in this kind of tournament. I think it's going to be more difficult for him in the candidates.
Yeah. And Rafael, you often hear in these invitational tournaments where one player might not be as strong, that they might get targeted in certain aspects, like certain players might take more chances at them. Do you have a sense of like what his vulnerabilities might be compared to the elite players?
I think a little bit of everything, but yeah, I recently analyzed a game that he lost to Anand, I think, in the Bundesliga, and uh, like I heard some people writing, "Wow, he's a candidate tournament. He's been beaten by Anand, a retired player." And I said, "Come on, hold on, this is
Yeah.
Anand. It's another thing." And okay, in this game, yeah, he was outplayed at some point. Then he put a fight, and then he lost in the end game. But it's probably a little bit of everything. But he most likely will suffer straight from the openings. I don't think his openings
Yeah.
are on par with this. I don't know what kind of support he's having there, but he's going to suffer. But it's a little bit of everything. He's like, what's his rating? Like 26, 30 something, right? That's
Yep, 26-31.
yeah. I mean, the other players are more or less 100 points above him. So
Yeah, which at that level, that's massive. Okay, next up, Fabiano Caruana, 31 years of age, currently rated 2803, number 2 in the world. He got in through the FIDE World Cup, although really he could have gotten in a variety of ways. He had quite a year in 2023. The fun fact is that his favorite chess podcast is Perpetual Chess. That's true, right, Rafael?
great. Yeah, he
No,
has
the
good
fun
taste.
fact. No, I'm kidding. Of course, shout out to C Squared. The fun fact is that he broke the record held by Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura for America's youngest chess grandmaster. Way back in the day, obviously, that record has been broken most recently by Abhimanyu Mishra. So, everyone, of course, is tapping Fabiano as the favorite. It's hard not to. Do you feel the same way, Rafael?
Yeah, completely. What can I say about Caruana? He's a legendary player. He's one of my favorite chess players ever. There's a fun fact also, well, regarding my relationship with him. Of course, I was beaten by him in a famous game in 2010 where he sacrificed his queen, whole preparation, and so on. But what I mean is that I've never seen a player play in such great level as he played in the Sinquefield Cup 2014. I was so impressed at that point. I was absolutely sure he was going to be a world champion, because I've not seen, even Magnus in his best didn't play such a tournament, like it was from another planet. And he is he is a player that when we see his career, he might get there or not, but we'll say he is a player of world champion status. That's for sure. He is really a legend, great player in everything, good openings, good understanding, excellent calculation. He's also a gentleman, so it's impossible not to like Caruana. So I think, but he had his chances before, and not always he has been successful. But of course, he is the player of the moment. He has been showing the best chess. He was the best chess player, in my opinion, in 2023. And I think he is the favorite. Yeah, it's going to be hard to take this tournament from, but of course, many players can get it. But I think he arrives as the main force to this tournament. He's been playing really, really well.
Yeah, well said. And he's a guy who, of course, he's been predictable with his openings in the past, but you expect him to, again, have a pretty decent team, perhaps not the external budget that Nepo does, although one never knows what's emanating from St. Louis, but certainly not budget constrained, and a legendary theoretician in his own right. So do you think that he is as predictable in terms of openings, or do you find him harder to predict than, say, Nakamura or Nepo, Rafael?
Well, then Nakamura for sure, because Nakamura has a more steady repertoire. But yeah, he is hard to predict because he can play anything equally well. He surprised with some of his openings in the candidates in the other years. He played like the Slav, for instance, that it's not so popular in this highest level. And he can play e4, he can play d4, he can play c4. He can play anything with good preparation, with theoretical novelties. So, in my opinion, he's the best prepared player in the world. Probably followed by Nepo, but I still think he's a little higher than that. And yeah, I believe he is going to play mostly e4. That's what he's been playing more recently, but he can do anything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Can't wait to see if he can break through. It feels like it's too obvious, but like you say, he's the highest rated. He's playing the best. It could be his time. Next up, Praggnanandhaa Rameshababu, 18 years of age, from India, number 14 as I record this, rated 2747. He also got in from the FIDE World Cup. Fun fact, in 2022, he became the youngest player ever to beat Magnus, but that record has subsequently been broken by someone we will discuss later, Gukesh. So what do you think? Is Praggnanandhaa ready, Rafael?
Well, it's really hard to say. I mean, he certainly has improved a lot. I also have a fun fact for Prague is that he's my son's favorite player. My son
interesting.
My son is 8 years old, but he was really rooting for Prague in the last World Cup because probably some generation thing, since he is the youngest. And he has improved a lot. I mean, for some time, I thought he was not improving as fast as he could, but then all of a sudden his play matured a lot, and he become really, really strong. As Nepo mentioned in a recent interview that I saw, he has become very good at openings, especially the Italian. He wins with white and black. And as all the Indian players, he can play very well in irrational situations that demands accurate calculation. He is really strong at that, but he is too young. I mean, he's only 18, right?
Yeah.
And it's in the first one. Remember what happened to Firouzja last time, right? So I think it's going to be really difficult for him, but he's for sure world champion contender in future years. But I don't think he's quite there at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, it would be an incredible story if he or Gukesh, as we'll get to, Firouzja feels a little more seasoned to me at this point. But yeah, if one of the teenagers were able to break through, it would be incredible. So, Rafael, just as a quick aside, is your son a tournament player?
Well, he has started his next weekend. He is going for his third tournament, but so far only playing against other kids. But soon he is going to be playing against adults. But he is just having fun at the moment.
That's great. That's exciting. Cool. Okay. Well, next up, Hikaru Nakamura, 36 years of age, from the United States, currently rated 2789, got in through the FIDE Grand Swiss. Fun fact, he appeared on the show Billions in 2020, playing Bobby Axelrod. Just kidding. He was playing Hikaru Nakamura, of course. So, I mean, I've been watching Grandmaster Daniel King's previews. He always does a fantastic job. Listeners should definitely check out Power Play Chess. As I record this, he's only done like 5 out of the 8 players or something. But Daniel actually, and of course I'm friendly with Daniel and I've interviewed him in the past. Sometimes he's, he sees that everyone has a chance. I mean, it's hard not to, but he actually thinks that Hikaru, he mentioned explicitly, he thinks Nepo and Caruana have a better chance just due to Hikaru being a little bit older and perhaps slightly more distracted. Do you agree with that, Rafael?
Yes, I agree with Daniel. I think he's right in his opinion. Of course, we can always be surprised, and we should never write Nakamura off, right?
Yeah.
As the last candidate. He almost went to second place. He could be like world champion at this point. So,
yeah.
And of course, he has the question is that for some years now, playing tournaments is not his main thing, right? He has his other business, his streams, and so on. But he's so incredibly good that he can surprise us, and when Magnus is not around anymore, then he can become even world champion. So. But I mean, if I'm going to bet money, I wouldn't bet on him because I don't think his preparation will be as good. He probably don't have so much time to prepare as some of the other players. Is probably not his main thing at the moment. So for these reasons, but from chess ability alone, he has shown he can do it. And also, this is a classical time control. If it were blitz, then he could beat anyone. But in classical, it becomes harder. So yeah, he surely is going to have a good tournament, but I don't think that good enough to win, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a legendary talent. No knock on him, but yeah, I mean, he's so successful outside of the candidates that it's just hard to imagine him putting the volume of hours in that some of his competitors would be. Although certainly to the extent that he needs help preparing, he would be able to get it. Now, you mentioned Rafael earlier, the relatively narrow repertoire. So you still thinking like Queen's Gambit declined with black and predominantly double king pawn? Is that where you think he's headed?
Yeah, I don't see any reason for him to deviate from that because he's going pretty well for him. And also, to study a new opening takes time. Although I miss the time when Nakamura played the King's Indian. He was such a good player in this. I remember a game, I was in a world team tournament in 2010, I believe, in Turkey. And he played a legendary game with black against Boris Gelfand in the main line of the King's Indian. I was I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that game. So I miss him. But of course, it's such a risky defense to be playing, especially in candidates tournament. I don't expect that anymore. But these were good years.
Yeah, Daniel King said Nakamura is a lot maturer in his play than he used to be, which is generally a good thing, but I get what you're saying. There's something to be said for the impetuousness of youth.
Yeah, remember when he played e4, e5, queen h5? I remember.
Oh, yeah.
And what you said, I just want to reinforce, is that Nakamura is such a huge talent. That he became so successful because with his stream era, people could start to see how can this be possible? Such a strong player, and then he became so successful that probably he didn't see the need to studying so hard to become world champion anymore. But yeah, he's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it does allow him to perhaps play more carefree, as he has said many times in interviews. He feels freer than ever, no pressure. But the question is just feeling less pressure enough to overcome what's probably a preparation disadvantage and possibly at age 36 a slight stamina disadvantage. Obviously, it would be great theater if he wins. So. And you, like you say, you can never discount him. Total legend. So, yeah, still getting excited talking about it. Right.
Yeah, and Nakamura is, he's a very popular guy, and so it's always nice when he's present in the tournaments because he has a huge following.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next up, Alireza Firouzja, 20 years of age, representing France, although born and raised in Iran, of course, currently rated 2760, has been rated higher. For my fun fact, I have a quote from Alireza, which is, I think that each top tournament should only be 1 week if you want to make it more popular, and the game has to finish after 4 hours, I think maximum. If it was up to me, more tournaments would be rapid, which is my favorite time control. I like it a lot. You can't train it. You just have to play by feeling. I think the people who are very good at blitz are also good at rapid. So the reason I highlighted that quote, because in a dream world, Rafael, where Alireza wins, and I could foresee some sort of unification match with a mixed time control where Magnus gets involved. I know some people don't want it, but I would love that theater. So do you think Alireza will have learned some lessons from the prior candidates, Rafael?
Yes, for sure. His play is much more mature. I've seen him playing this year, and very interesting play. He's playing the Tata steel, if I'm not mistaken. And also, he's always fighting for for the win. He loses and wins many games. So it's very interesting when he's playing. Of course, with him, we have to go back to this unpleasant situation that we had last year when he was playing these matches, and also then he played this open tournament in order to qualify for the rating spots. That was strange. So I think FIDE has to change this regulation. But he is a deserving candidate, of course. He has lost some rating from the last candidates, right? And also, chess is not his only activity, from what I know, right? Or he's not only thinking about chess. So I don't know if this has changed or not. But I think Firouzja is like, together with Nepo in the second tier, I think he has very good chances.
Yeah. So as Rafael alluded to, of course, Alireza has expressed an interest in fashion design in particular in the past, although he's then downplayed that in recent interviews. So it's hard to know for sure. He does seem like, if you compare him now, Gukesh and Pragg are a little bit younger, so that factors into it as well. But those kids seem to have a sort of tunnel vision that Alireza, there's a little more mystery involved. He takes these long breaks in between tournaments. He's playing a lot of bullet online at times, which is fine, but maybe not showing like a single-minded dedication to getting better at classical chess. Even the quote I read about Rapid makes one wonder, but obviously another worldly talent, incredibly creative player. Are his openings predictable for you, Rafael?
No, not at all. But he has a very aggressive style. So he likes to play e4, and he likes to play risky openings with black as well. And he's always playing for a win. That's something that I enjoy about him. He's not afraid of strange positions, going for wild complications. And but yeah, he's mainly a e4 player. Let's see if he's going to change this. Also, I don't know how he's going to break the Petrov, for instance, or e4, e5 in general. Although, for instance, against the Berlin defense, there is a little bit more scope. They are playing the Italian also a lot, so he's going to show many ideas on this. But I want to know what he's going to do against the Petrov. But yeah, he has shown that he can play many openings, just like all these guys. But I think he has a very good chance. But and also I think in case he loses a game in the beginning of the tournament, from what I've seen, I think he has better recovery chances than someone like Nepo, for instance, because he is more used to losing and winning games, and he's going for it all the time. And also regarding this divided attention of chess and fashion and other things, my impression is that he was a little bit out of chess for some time, and then he spent a long time without playing. But my impression is that he's back into it now. I've seen him playing, and he's showing a lot of ideas, and I think he's back into it.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to watch. And the rest of the round one pairings, I mentioned that Abasov has white against Nepo. Caruana has white against Nakamura. They do this thing where if you're from the same country, they go out of their way to pair you in the earlier rounds just to decrease any possibility of collusion. Alireza with white against Praggnanandhaa, that should be a banger. And Gukesh white against Gujirathi. So, I mean, there's no bad matchups, but right from April 4th when they kick off, it should be a lot of fun. Next up, the aforementioned Vidit Gujirathi, 29 years of age, from India, number 23 in the world, currently rated 27-27, got in through an amazing performance at the FIDE Grand Swiss. Fun fact, he is a keen photographer and an avid traveler. Vidit also obviously takes his chess very seriously, but seems like someone, I know he's an avid reader, like he seems like someone who's got interests outside of chess and perspective outside of chess that not every top player has. So what do you think of the somewhat late rise of Vidit, Rafael?
Yeah, you said it. Late rise. I mean, he's been around for a long, long time, of course, but as an elite player, it's not such a long time. So he has improved so much in the last couple of years. Uh, I'm curious to know what exactly he did to improve so much, because it seemed like he would be a very strong player, but not a world champion candidate. But then you see his play in World Cup. Well, he played very well also in the Rapid, FIDE World Rapid and no Blitz tournaments. But especially in the World Cup, he played really, really well. I've analyzed some of
Yeah.
his games. It's out of this world what he did. And if he plays in that level, then he can win the tournament. But
Oh, so you do think he can win? Because betting markets have him around 5%, which of course is not zero, but obviously a long shot.
yeah, I think it's very difficult to believe that he's going to win. But I mean, from what I've seen in his play, he showed that he can play against all these players. You know, he's a very well-rounded player. He can play different types of position, but you know, some the style of some of these players is well defined. Like Nepo is a player he likes to play with initiative. Like Prague, okay, well, he can play anything, but he likes these irrational positions. And Vidit, no, he can play really good positional chess. I think it's where his main strength is. So yeah, if he is inspired, he can win this tournament. I believe. Of course, it will be a huge surprise, but probably from the underdogs, he is one of my favorites to. No,
Okay.
he's not so young anymore, so he has seen things in life, even though he's not experienced in this such a strong tournament. But I think he can surprise.
Okay, glad to hear it. Yeah, what Daniel King said that resonated with me is that he's a very responsible player. So you can see him taking a very pragmatic approach. He's not necessarily going to blow the field away, but he could be a guy who kind of hangs around, and if there's an opportunity at the end, could potentially steal it. I mean, obviously, he had the famed Swiss Gambit, as you alluded to, in the Grand Swiss. I mean, with that catastrophic round one loss against Erwin Lamy, and then just an incredible run from there. So definitely resilient, and yeah, he's just very nice guy. So certainly wouldn't be disappointed to see Vidit make a run for it. And last but not least, Rafael, we've got Gukesh Dommaraju, 17 years old, unbelievable, from India, of course, number 16 in the world, 2742 current rating, got in through the FIDE circuit, not quite as controversial as the Alireza qualification that Rafael alluded to, but was close to the end, edged out Anish Giri. Fun fact, his dad is a surgeon, and his dad actually quit his job in 2016, quit his practice in order to help manage Gukesh's chess career. So solid foundation behind him. What can you say about Gukesh, Rafael?
Yeah, brilliant player. First of all, yeah, I also believe that his qualification is, can raise some, strange feelings, because if you play a tournament that is organized, especially everybody knows that the other players even will feel bad by beating him. It's a strange situation, right? So definitely it's not his fault, but FIDE has to change the regulations not to allow this kind of thing. But yeah, apart from that, he's a great player. He has such a high. No, he learns so fast. He becomes so strong so quickly. But I have my doubts about Gukesh for this tournament. I've seen his play lately. It was not very impressive, in my opinion. Uh, so yeah, he was playing really, really well. But then I was a little bit disappointed from his play in recent tournaments. But Ben, before the candidates, we never know what's going on also, right? We've seen players that are playing badly suddenly start playing really well, and the candidates, we don't know if they are very tense with the tournament if they are hiding everything or if they are keeping the energy just for this tournament. So it's hard to say, oh, Gukesh is not going to be no, he doesn't have good chances because he played badly in the last tournaments. But I definitely don't think he is going to win this candidates. I think he's too young, too inexperienced, and it's not yet his time, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be a major surprise for sure. Although the betting markets actually had him above Vidit at 6.5%. I mean, I think they're primarily done based on rating. But yeah, I mean, 17 years old, that would be an astounding story, to say the least. But is there anything, Rafael? Are there any particular openings you would expect to see from Gukesh?
Oh, it's more or less what the other guys are playing, right? A lot of Italians, and so
yeah. I'm falling asleep just hearing you say it. But yeah,
no, but
such is the world we live in.
But they managed to make it interesting, because they always, especially these Indian players, they have so many ideas that they manage to create complications in the Italian. The Italian is such a difficult opening to learn because everything looks the same up to a point, and then suddenly everything can happen. And but yeah, I would really enjoy seeing some different openings in this tournament. So I don't know if everybody's playing the Italian, because they are saving something for the tournaments. That would be really good. But if they continue playing what they usually play, we're going to see, a lot of Italians and Rui Lopez, so there's Berlin and all this. But I hope they change it.
Yeah, we will see. And before we started recording, Rafael was telling me that, we've been getting the people's temperature on Chess 960. I'm just going to call it Chess 960. I give up. It only needs one name, and I'm sticking with Chess 960 for now. If Magnus comes on the pod and tells me to call it freestyle, I'll change. But until then, I'm going with Chess 960. But anyway, so we'll discuss Rafael's affinity for Chess 960 before we wrap up. But Rafael, before we get to the women's candidates, I got to put you on the spot. Everyone wants a hot take. Gun to your head. Who are you picking to win this tournament?
Caruana.
Yeah, it's hard when it's framed that way. It's hard not to go with the guy who checks the most boxes.
I was curious. You saw the betting markets. Is he a clear favorite for the betting markets? Because if I was the bookmaker, I would be putting Caruana, and then I'm not sure. Probably very equal Nepomniathchi and Firouzja, and then the others more or less the same until Abasov, in my opinion.
Okay, so I did a separate segment on this with Chess by the Numbers, but I'll read you all the odds. So it's Caruana 34%, Nakamura 17%, Nepo 14%, Firouzja 14%, Prag 9.5%, Gukesh 6.5%, Vidit 4%, and Abasov a little less than 1%.
It's okay. I just think...
anything strike you as off from that?
Well, I like Nakamura a lot, but I think his odds are a little bit overestimated, in my opinion. I think he should be together. I think, in my opinion, it's Caruana, and then Nepo and Firouzja, and then Nakamura, maybe, and then the rest of the field.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the fact that Caruana seems the clear favorite means he can't win. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And okay, so we'll do a run through of the women's section. I'm also going to have a separate segment on that, although it's not recorded yet. So in theory, I'm going to have a separate segment on that. So just to quickly get Rafael's opinion, I'll just run through the players. Rafael, we've got Leitao, 27 years old, prior runner-up, 2550. Katerina Lagno, 34 years old, 2542. Goryachkina, 25 years old, 2553. Salamova, 20 years old, 2446. Anna Muzichuk, 34, 2520. Vaishali, 22 years of age, 2481. Tanjong Yi, 32 years of age, 2521. And Humpy Kaneru, 36 years of age, 2546. What are your overall thoughts on the women's candidates, Rafael?
Well, first, I think Lei, forgive me for not spelling the full name because I'll just cut it short, Lei and Tan, because, Lei was, Lei and Tan, they played in the last candidates as well, right? It was a match, if I'm not mistaken, the
Yeah.
women's tournament. And they, Lei played the match against June and June, right? And it was a very difficult match. Very, could have gone either way. And also Tan has been playing them very well. She played very well in the last candidates tournament. So they are favorites in my opinion. They are strong contenders. But Goryashkina is young and she's eager to win this tournament. I mean, she is the hope of Russia at this moment, right? Russia certainly wants to get Nepomniachtchi and Goryashkina as world champions. She will have a lot of budget as well to prepare, so she's really dangerous in this tournament. By the way, I want to know how is she going? How is it's going to be this match when she plays against Muzichuk? It's a strange.
Oh,
I
right.
don't know
Yeah,
what's going.
Russia against Ukraine. And and she's not disassociated herself from Russia's acts of aggression as much as some of the other players. So yeah, there's definitely likely some ill will there, and obviously my sympathies are with Anna. Yeah,
And also Lanya, right? Because she is Ukraine,
yeah,
but she lives in Russia. She is married to Grishuk, right? So
yeah.
it's also a very strange situation. So
Yeah, it's got to be challenging for Anna to set the emotions aside in one of the biggest tournaments of her life.
yeah, and also I would cast as possible surprise in this tournament Vaishali. She is
Yeah,
Prague's sister, right? And she is also very dangerous. I've seen some of her games. She plays in the style of her brother. Also, they play together. They like these crazy positions. When they are playing, you are never bored because they really enjoy these calls on board. They calculate very well, and she's going to be, a possible surprise. But my favorites are Lei, Tan, or Goryashkina. Lano, yeah, she plays very well, of course, as well, but I don't believe so much. Koneru, she's already past 30, right? And she's
36.
she didn't play for a long time, and now she's back. I think it's going to be hard for her this tournament, so she's not one of my favorites. And Salimova is very young, and she did pretty well in the World Cup, so she certainly is studying really hard for this, preparing really hard for this tournament to surprise everybody. But she's young. Her rating is not very high yet, so I don't know whether she can really fight for the top spots.
Yeah. I basically echo your sentiment. I know Grandmaster Jakob Agard has had a chance to calculate and analyze with Vaishali, and he's a big fan of hers. He's been quite impressed with her. So definitely agree with you with her as the dark horse. But if I had to bet on one person, as I mentioned in the segment with Tai Pruce Zimmerman, it would also be Goryachkina. Youth and strength are a tough combination to overcome. But these are thin margins. I mean, obviously anyone can win.
Yeah, there is also this fight, because currently both world champions are from China, and now India is trying to get the world champions. It will probably happen at some time, but is it? Are they ready for it? They have chances. They have several players in both tournaments, and also Russia, of course, also fighting for it. So there is also this tournament of nations to say, and that's interesting.
Yeah, and we gotta no offense to all the Indian chess fans and listeners. I'm a big fan of the incredible chess culture there, but we got to keep you guys down while we can, because we're living on borrowed time here. Sooner or later, the Indian takeover will be complete, it seems. So, Rafael, thank you for all of your insights on the candidates. Since it's been 4.5 years or whatever since we've chatted, what else have you been up to? Anything else you would like to highlight from the chess world or from your own work?
Yeah, we chat in 2019, right? But it seems like a whole different world. That's why I thought it was even before. So many things happened after that. So now I'm more or less retired from tournament play, but of course I'm going to play in October. It's not that I don't play chess anymore or that I hate chess, not this. I just have other priorities, but I also like to play. I'm always playing Blitz online. I play Title Tuesdays, and now I make this commentary for chess.com, and we have so many events at this point that I always have some games to analyze, so it's very nice. As you mentioned, chess 960 or freestyle chess, or as I played in 2019, or even before in 2006, it was still called Fischer Random. So I played a tournament in Germany. In 2006, Fischer Random. Then I played the Icelandic Championship, and I became Icelandic Championship in Fischer Random. It's kind of some strange thing, but it happened. That's
great.
Yeah, this is something that I would really enjoy. I was really happy to see the news that Magnus is starting a tour on this type of chess, because chess, this question of opening preparation is really tough nowadays for professionals. You have to study so many hours. We've been joking about the Italian. How are you going to play the Italian against someone that has analyzed it for dozens of hours, this opening? And I think that chess 960 is some fresh air that we really need at this moment, because it's not so different from regular chess, and it's really nice to see some tournaments, so that's the kind of chess that I would be willing to play a lot if it became popular.
Yeah, I discussed this with Jan Gustafsson recently a little. I think that the conflict, and like when I interviewed Levon Aronian, he's obviously a huge proponent of chess 960, but I think there's a tension where the players love it, because I totally understand it's overwhelming, the amount of work to keep up with the openings, with Engine's ability to see through positions these days. But for the fans, chess is already so difficult to follow, especially the lower down you go. And at least openings give the chess fan some sort of ballast, something that where they can hold on to something that they know and look for structures that they know. So it remains to be seen. I've mentioned in the past, obviously the alternative, Rafael, is just to continue to speed games up, or to just leave things as they are and say, look, if you want to be a chess professional, you're going to have to study a lot of openings. But I'm not as big a fan yet, I have to say.
Yeah,
but I'm glad to see the support.
No, I don't think it should be completely taking chess. No, we should change classical chess for this. But I think we don't have any tournaments on chess 960 for amateurs. I don't remember. I played this open tournament in Germany, but it was like the only one. So I just think, well, maybe if you're making a big chess festival, maybe one day you can play chess 960 to see if people likes it, because my feeling is that people think it's very difficult to play, and it's really strange. Everything is different until you start playing it. So when you start playing it, it's not so, the ideas are the same, the principles are the same, and at some point it becomes regular chess. So I think it's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it has to be step by step.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Rafael, on the topic of the games of the day, as I've mentioned, you do a fantastic job. I always enjoy reading your annotations. I'm curious what your approach is these days. Like, how do you utilize the engine as you go through these games?
No, what I like to do, I can't do it sometimes because there are tournaments where I have to send my annotations more or less quickly, so that when the article is published, so that the public can already see the annotations. Then I have to annotate really fast, and then I turn on the engine and start analyzing with it. But when I have a little bit more time, what I really enjoy and I really like to do is like I analyze the game as if I had no engines. Like I even put down some words if I really have time. I annotate the game myself, and then I put the engine on, and then of course I have to change some of the words and some of the evaluations, but it's much nicer because then I have my own view of the game. Because what I think is that when you annotate immediately, seeing the game with the engine, you lose a little bit of connection with the problems that a player has during the game. So the engine, for instance, she sees something and she already thinks it's bad for some reason. And then you do not analyze it because you are not going through this line. But if you were playing the game, then you would certainly be aware of this variation, or you'll be afraid of it. But something that the engine already it doesn't show you, so you don't even care. So that's why I like to have my own vision first, and then I analyze. I think it's more interesting to do this way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, again, greatly enjoy it. Last thing before we say goodbye for this time, Rafael, we talked about the Brazilian chess legacy, Grandmaster Mecking in our prior interview. How has chess changed in the past 4 years in Brazil?
Well, we have some new players coming. For one, there is a very strong new player called Luiz Paulo Suppi. He became known by that time, I think 2019 maybe, or 2020.
Queen C6, we're talking here?
Exactly. It's because he beat Magnus Carlsen in his Blitz game.
Yeah, legendary.
Yeah, of course, it was a stream and all this, but the combination was so nice that it became famous. And he is really, really strong. He's in Blitz. He is like close to 3,000 on chess.com. He's really strong in Blitz. But the problem we have here in Brazil is that we don't have so many tournaments to play, and we don't have support from the federation. For instance, Suppi and other players, they needed to play more in Europe, played some opens, like the Indian players, they do all the time. They go for this, they spend like 2 months playing non-stop tournaments, and he needed to do this, and it's not so easy for us. But yeah, okay, it's not, chess is not growing, professional chess, I would say, is not growing very fast in Brazil, but we have a lot of interest in chess. So there are streams that are done in YouTube channels that have more than 10,000 people watching the stream live. Wow. So it's a huge number. And so we have a lot of fans. People sometimes, man, I have a YouTube channel, and it has happened to me that I was like walking around the street and someone recognized me from the.
Oh, that's great.
And, like he wants to take a photo or something. So there is a lot of interest in chess, and I hope this helps getting more support for the professional players.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, obviously. It would be a lot of fun to see an even greater rise of chess in Brazil. Well, Rafael, really appreciate all of your insights. You got me even more fired up for the candidates. Anything else before we say goodbye for this time?
No, just thanks for the invitation. And I think you do a great job for chess. Great work. I'm always following you. I also listen to the podcast, and I have your book. So congratulations on your work. It's really great for all chess players.
Thank you, Rafael. I'm honored and obviously a fan of your work as well. So I will be seeing you in the chess.com columns. And thanks again until next time, Rafael.
Okay, until next time.
And we are back, rejoined once again by the official numbers correspondent of Perpetual Chess, Tai Pruce Zimmerman. He is an accountant by training, Chess by the Numbers on Twitter. He always shares the probabilities, not only of who is most likely to win an elite tournament, but just as importantly, updated probabilities as the tournament goes on. So even if you're not a Twitter/X user, it's well worth just Googling his account and getting the updated numbers. I also believe he will be sharing these numbers with chess.com for their daily reports. So I am excited to dig into the data and talk some numbers with Chess by the Numbers, Tai Pruce Zimmerman. Welcome back, Tai.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, candidate season. Very exciting. So you're the first person I'm interviewing in a triumvirate. So I've got to take your temperature as a chess fan before we get to the numbers, Tai. How does it feel without Magnus in the cycle? Is it at all diminished for you?
I don't feel it diminishes the candidates because he wouldn't be in the candidates if he'd stuck around anyway. As far as a candidates tournament goes, this one is, for me, really exciting. I think we've got a better than average field in terms of the drama and the question marks and the uncertainty, which for me makes it more fun to watch. After someone wins this and they're playing Ding instead of Magnus, I love Ding, but there's maybe a reduction in the World Championship match for Magnus not being around, but I don't think it hurts the candidates one bit, and I think this is going to be an amazing tournament.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And it's funny because people like Alireza Firouzja, for example, and even Fabiano, they talk about, they seem like they could take or leave, the candidate cycle as a whole. But while it's here, they seem to fully embrace it. I mean, listening to C Squared and thinking about Fabi's process, it's pretty clear he designs his whole chess calendar around trying to get into this event. So yeah, and as you say, Magnus wouldn't be in it anyway. So as a standalone tournament, what we like, of course, is tournaments with high stakes where people are going to bring their best prep, have teams helping, see how people perform under pressure. And as you alluded to, this one has the particularly evergreen sports narrative of sort of the young guard pushing up against the older generation. So I am super excited. And without further ado, I think we should dig into the numbers. So as per tradition here on Perpetual Chess, I tracked down some betting lines, at least on the open / traditionally men's section. I could not find them on the women's. So I'll be bouncing those off of Tai in due time. But first, Tai, we might as well start with the top lines. I think I know the answer to this. And for listeners not familiar with Tai's work, Tai, your model is based strictly on classical rating. Is that correct?
Strictly on classical rating. Use live ratings so that we can factor in a little bit of how people's form is as the tournament goes on. But yeah, from day one, we just use classical live rating.
Okay. And in the past, you've mentioned that you've done a bit of back testing, trying to incorporate different factors, like maybe how people performed in other candidates, head-to-head matchup, stuff like that. But rating is, for all of its flaws, generally a good predictor, correct?
Yeah, rating is actually not that good of a predictor of the candidates because the candidates is a very unpredictable tournament. However, everything else I've tried to backtest is even less accurate. I like to paraphrase Winston Churchill and say rating is the worst way to predict the candidates, except all the other ways to predict it.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just one tournament, so it's tough. But yeah, as I sit here and think out loud, Nepo won the last two. He wasn't the rating favorite either time. When Fabiano won, he probably was the rating favorite. Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
No. In the history of in the history of this format, with the 8 players and the 14 rounds going back to 2013, a top 3 seed by rating has only won once. That was in 2013.
Oh, okay.
Magnus, as the top seed at 2872, underperformed his performance rating of only 2854, but that was enough to sneak through on tie breaks, if we recall that one. And in the decades since, the top 3 seeds by rating have failed to win every single candidates tournament. Fabi, I believe, was 4th the year he won it. And
Wow.
he was the number 1 seed twice and didn't win either of those. The time he won it, he had dropped a little bit of rating. He was sitting in 4th. And so,
That's fascinating.
There's not a history
and of
of
course,
the rating favorites.
Interesting, yeah. And for people who haven't seen the Magnus documentary, I believe it chronicles some of the 2013 candidates. But yeah, I mean, Magnus just barely managed to win it. He needed external help at the end. So now that we've established that these predictions are meaningless, Tai, let's dig into them. So who, by your model, is the most likely to win?
The highest rated player, Fabiano Caruana.
Okay, and I'll tell you what percentage. So I got these betting odds from Betwin. Again, they are as of March 17th, so they may change, but I'm guessing they'll be reasonably close to Tai's numbers. But so Betwin has Caruana as the favorite, and if you just convert it straight and add up all the percentages, you get up to 115%. That's how books make money. So I removed what's called the juice, the vigorish, to back it out to a total of 100% to come up with the number. And Caruana's comes up at an implied probability of winning of 34%. Are you over or under that, Tai?
I'm at 35.8, so just slightly under,
okay.
But within a couple percentage points. I saw that.
Yeah, I figured it would skew close to the rating. And as I mentioned, I mean, close to the odds. And as I mentioned when I chatted with Jan Gustafsson recently, I do consider Fabiano the favorite. I mean, he's got the highest rating, but he also, to the extent that experience might matter, the fact he's done it before, to me does mean something. But nonetheless, given what you've just said about the historical context of sort of fluky results, I think I would not bet him at that price. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree that he's the favorite. I would add to the reasons that he had such a spectacular 2023. He qualified for this tournament basically every single way you can and was like the dominant player that we were removing from all the secondary qualification methods to figure out who was next best in the circuit after Fabi and all these other things. He had such a fantastic year of classical chess in 23 that it feels like even as the highest rated player, we might be understating how well he's been playing. And so if that carries forward, I definitely he's the favorite. But does he really have better than a 1 in 3 chance of winning? I agree that it's a little hard to bet on someone up in the 30s.
Yeah. I'd be happy to see him win, though. Always root for him, and yeah, I'm sure he feels like he's got a few chances left. So even though he's showing no signs of slowing down right now, Father Time can come up quickly, so he's good. The opportunity is there for him. It would be fun to see him do it. And before we go to the next player, Tai, I forgot to ask you about one thing I always appreciate about your data is it's easy to, as I said, relatively easy to sort of spitball percentages based on ratings or go to betting markets and see how likely someone is to win. But you're always able to provide context like how likely are we to see a tiebreak and able to update that as the tournament goes on. How likely are two or more participants to tie for first, which would lead to a rapid playoff?
My simulations only show about a 22% chance that we see a playoff.
Okay.
78% of the time, someone wins it outright.
Okay. So 78% of the time, the people who complain about classical chess being settled in rapid format will have nothing to complain about. But
I'll keep it. That'll be one of the very interesting numbers to keep an eye on as the tournament goes on. Obviously, how the field progresses and whether there's a battle for first will affect that. So as we get to those late rounds, a tiebreak might get a lot more likely or might come fully off the table. So that'll be one of those pieces of context I'll definitely be sharing as the tournament progresses.
Okay. And bringing it back to the percentages, who do you have as the second most likely winner?
This is where I diverge from those betting odds a little bit. I did also have calculate those implied odds myself before we started up. And they have a very clear, like 3-player. They have Naka just barely in the second place, but my model looks at his 2789 rating and says he's a clear second place favorite.
Huh.
So I have
so they have 17%. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they have him.
How does yours compare to 17?
I've got him at 25.3%.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I wonder if people have bet on Firouzja. I mean, we'll get to that later, but that's sort of my first thought in terms of like, if he's lost betting share, someone probably has taken it, and it occurs. Firouzja seems to be the one people are most likely to fire on. I don't know, but we'll get to that in due time. So that's interesting. So you have Naka clear second at 25%. Anything to add to that before we get to the other in that trio of similarly priced / estimated players?
I don't think there's too much else to add. Again, it's just ratings driven. I would say that if we want to, again, look at just 2023 performance ratings and overall, he was the one guy right there behind Fabi. Fabi was better, in my opinion, because he played more and maintained that high level. But while Naka didn't play as much, he was the other player who had a performance rating up over 2,800 last year and really seemed to be playing just as well as Fabi, just not winning as many tournaments because he wasn't playing as many tournaments.
Yeah, and what I was saying about Fabi obviously applies even more to Nakamura being 36 years of age and having so many other successful ventures going on. You have to think he's really thinking like, I don't know how many more times I'll be in this situation. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he defies history in so many ways with all he's able to achieve with all he has going on. So, I can understand your numbers being higher. So the betting markets then have both at 14%, Nepo and the aforementioned Alireza Firouzja. What do you have on those two, Tai?
Well, Firouzja, by having 2 extra rating points, I have at 11.2%. And Nepo at a flat 10%. So
okay, so there's Naka's missing. Yeah,
there's Naka's missing. The 3 of them combined, the betting market says 45%, and I say 46%. It's just the distribution of, is Naka noticeably above the other 2? My model says yes because of rating. The betting markets don't say so. You speculated people might be betting on Firouzja, which makes some sense. I actually think the most likely player to be bet up relative to rating is Nepo, because I can imagine a bettor looking at the fact that he's played this tournament twice and won it twice and saying, who cares what he's rated? I'm going to bet on the guy who wins every time. So I could see I could see that being a pretty logical and he's sitting in that sweet spot. He's the 4 seed, so he could go ahead and win it and not break that top 3 streak.
Yeah, and we should say that these markets on BWin, like in the past, betting sites like Pinnacle, which is like a real deal betting site, have had markets. I didn't see some this time. BWin, I don't know. Some of these markets are kind of shambolic where like you can bet like $100 and then they stop you. Mm-hmm. So I will say like we maybe shouldn't like give too much knowledge to the betting market in this case, even though when people can put a lot of money on the line, it tends to be pretty predictive. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I guess just to give my own personal opinion, I don't think Naka, like all due respect to your model, but Nepo, Firouzja, and Naka to me seem like they should be closely priced. Yeah, ratings fluctuate so much at their level. They've all had Naka's rating. Naka's had their rating, so it just seems like maybe even like regardless of what people bet on, maybe the markets are priced based more on a rolling average sort of thing, which if you did that, that would also impact what top line you came with, correct?
Correct. And I think I would agree that to my personal intuition, the market having the 3 of them kind of neck and neck makes more sense than Naka being such a clear second. But he did play really, really well all through 2023 when he played. So I think it's somewhat reasonable to have him in a little bit of a clear second, but I don't necessarily agree intuitively that he's got quite as good of chances as the model says. But rating is rating.
Yeah. Okay, and who do you have 5th?
I have Prague 5th, just like the market. And he's the other player giving a couple percentage points to Naka, though, because the market had him at 9.4%, and I have him at a flat 7% to win.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, too. I mean, like Jan Gustafsson said when I interviewed him, if you're going to bet on one of the young guys, I mean, he's the one who really seems to be firing on all cylinders lately. So, a little bit older than Gukesh as well. Although, of course, younger than Firouzja. I barely count Firouzja as like the young guard anymore. I don't know about you.
He fell off the junior list. He's not a junior anymore. He's just a chess player.
And it's his second candidates, he's old news. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be fascinating. As I said at the beginning, the idea, someone like him in particular, who seems to be checking all the boxes as he goes along, like what happens his first time in the candidates. His nerves seem amazing from what we've seen, but it's definitely a step up in class. So
we saw what happened in Alireza's first candidates.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think that's predictive that he'll struggle again, but for the other kids there as a teenager for the first time, maybe it means something, maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us, I believe, the next kid will be next on your list. Is that correct?
Gukesh, 6.5% in both my model and the market.
Okay. That would be amazing if you won. I mean, that would be super impressive. Only 17 years of age, that would be incredible. But yeah, not much more to say than that. The numbers and the market agree, and obviously it's 6% is not nothing.
No,
but
I've seen much longer shots. I've been modeling enough tournaments for long enough. I've seen longer shots at the beginning go ahead and win. That's a chance, and we'll see whether that 6% goes up or down as he starts playing.
Yep. And then next up, you have Vidit, I'm sure. How did your number compare to the 4%-ish from BWin?
4.0%.
Okay. Right on line.
Those two, I agreed with BWin to the 10th.
Okay, that's funny. And Abasov?
So that was interesting. BWin gave him an implied 0.8%. And that's just sort of how markets handle tail edge percentages. There was only so much.
Right.
They offered plus 10,000 on him, which, to take the juice out, suggests almost a 1% chance, which I think seems too high to all of us. This one, I'm going to say, when I ran this, I thought if I did 5,000 simulations, I would not see him win. I thought his odds of actually winning, especially winning outright, would probably be like 1 in 100,000 or something like that. So I didn't think I'd see it in my simulations, but I did. In 5,000 simulations, Abasov won outright 5 times. So the model says he's in that like 0.1% chance to actually contend, if not win. Like he will probably be the punching bag we expect. On average, he finishes in like 7.5 place out of 8. But he does have some chances to contend. My model put him at 0.2%, including tiebreak chances.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, and as you allude to, I think they just don't want to give longer than 100 to 1. They probably don't feel like they have to. Like people who want to bet the long shot will gladly put their $20 down and dream of making $2,000. But yeah, it's an uphill climb for sure. But it'll be interesting. And so, Tai, before we move on to your numbers on the women's section, any final thoughts or info you think the listeners should have?
I think that's pretty straightforward. I've got some other things I track that are really more interesting as the tournament goes on. I have odds of like specific final scores being the winning number, but that's a really wide bell curve right now. It's as we get closer to the later rounds. I think that's the most important thing about the model. We talked about how the ratings aren't that predictive ultimately of who wins this tournament historically, with top 3 seeds usually not doing it. But they're a starting point for that context, and more than the initial ratings, the value I feel in my model, and the reason I run it, and the reason I keep it the same and don't try to add new variables beyond rating, is that as the tournament goes on, that's where it gets more and more valuable every round. So those updates will be more meaningful to me than where we start, though I think the starting point is as good as anything else with how close it landed to the betting odds. But a lot of those things, as the tournament goes on, those odds of someone winning outright, those odds of a 3-way tie or a 4-way tie, I do have in here as well. I guess I've got one fun nugget. In the 5,000 simulations I did, one time only, once, it ended in a 6-way tie at 7.5. Oh, wow. 6 players on +1, 14 rounds. We eliminate 2, and the rest move on to rapid to see who the candidate is. So that's with 1 out of 5,000. That's less likely than Abasov winning outright. But hey, weird things could happen, and so buried in the model, we've got some of the odds of those really weird things, and we'll see if any of them become more likely as we get closer to the end.
Yeah. Look forward to you updating the numbers on that. And I'm always rooting for chaos. So
I think it'd be hilarious if even 4 players tied for first or something, even 3, but like the more the merrier. I think that'd be suited.
Yeah, hilarious and dramatic too. Like fun to watch. Yeah.
That those tie breaks would be the most exciting day of chess anyone's watched in a long time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, like I said, Ty, I wasn't able to find betting markets on the women's candidates, but I will tell you. So I looked at their ratings. They've got 4 people rated very close to 2550. So I'm guessing your model reflects more of a toss-up.
Very much so. We've got the highest rated by a tiny bit is Guryachkina, rated 2553, puts her at 22.3% to win, with Leitao at 21.2%, just 1 percentage point back. And then Humpy Kanaru is 18.6% to win, and Katerina Lagno at 18.3%. So all 4 of them are basically 20% flip.
And any of your... Now, this may apply. You may have done more back testing on the open than the women's section, but you mentioned rating being the least bad predictor. Have you looked at age as a predictor?
I looked at age in the open. We haven't, it's important caveat, we have not seen as young a field as we have this year. This is by far the youngest field we've seen in this format. We've only seen 1 teenager ever before, Firouzja last year, and now suddenly we've got Firouzja still here, still young, and yet we've got 2 teenagers younger than him in the field as well.
Yeah.
But if I graphed, I have looked at how people's performance ratings compare to their initial rating and graphed that against age. And there is historically, going back to 2013 in the open candidates, 0 correlation. Even with Firouzja as the youngest player having a pretty significant underperformance in the last cycle, that still wasn't enough to give any meaningful correlation overall between age and performance relative to rating. So there's maybe there's an intriguing question with the only teenager having been an underperformance. Maybe the data isn't quite capturing an effect that could be real for the really young players. We don't.
Right. Well, as a 40-something, I was equally concerned about some sort of tailing off effect as participants get into their 30s, where maybe they underperform their rating. But in terms of thinking it through anecdotally, it's not even that often that there's 30-something players in it. But what made me think of this is, just if you were to design a betting market strictly based on rating in the women's section, I will say that Guryachkina, being clearly the youngest of those 4, and marginally the highest rated, like if you let me bet her, at the rating price, I probably would want to, because like to have the combination of still on the upswing, in terms of the aging curve and the highest rating. Although I guess what seed was Firouzja last time in the men's?
He was seeded second, I think.
Yeah, so that theory wouldn't have worked so well with him. But anyway,
Yes.
Gujirathi also checks the experience box on top of that. But it'll be interesting to see. Moving to the bottom half of the women participants, what other percentages do you come up with?
The next two that still have pretty good odds, who aren't too far back in rating, sitting at 25. And this is actually an interesting result. I think this is a sample size. I don't think I did quite enough simulations. I got the women's model run this morning. So I've got Tan Zhangyi at 1 point higher rated, having a slightly lower win chance. So she's at 8.3%, and I've got Anna Muzychuk at 8.9%. But somewhere in that ballpark for both of them, giving the roughly 30 rating points to the top favorites, drops them down into that 8 to 9% range, but they're definitely still close enough in rating that they've got great chances too, according to the model.
Okay, yeah. And they're, of course, both in their 30s and both have had higher ratings at times. So it's hard to say, because you could argue, well, they've been higher rated, so they, the model could be underestimating them, but you could also say they're older. So their odds have declined.
And my inclination is to assume that both of those are captured in the process of simulating, because sometimes they play better than their rating in one sim, and sometimes they play worse in another. And I think that reflects the fact that, yeah, they've been rated higher. They have the capacity, so they might play better. They also might play worse because and for a million reasons, both rating history and just the general variance of chess.
Yeah. Okay. And so rounding it out, we've got the two other younger players, Vaishali and Salamova. What do you have for their odds?
Vaishali comes in based just on rating at 2%, and then Salimova at 0.5%.
Oh, wow.
And
it's smaller than I would have. I mean, obviously I could have done the math since you told me all the other ones, but going in, it's smaller than I would have thought, based on 100 elo between 2550 and 2450. Yeah, well, 2420, but
yeah, it's a bigger gap than I might have intuitively guessed. I think part of that is that there's so many 2550s. So the gap between them, the rating gap between them and any one of the favorites isn't so dramatic, but over the course of 14 rounds, the model's just pretty confident that one of those top-rated players will emerge higher than them. That being said, that's just based on their rating right now, and if you look at all these players' rating curves over the past couple years, the younger players are the ones who have still been improving, and Vaishali in particular, I'm not even remotely confident that her current rating is so reflective of her current strength. I think she may be an actively improving player who may be a bit underrated right now. So the model won't give her credit for true strength until she shows it over the board. But if she starts to play at a higher performance rating and get some positive results, the model will quickly adjust as the rounds go on.
Okay. And how does your model, when you input one additional round, like how much do you just get? Is that just weighted as one game, or do you upweight it in some respect because it's the actual candidates? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if I quite know what you're asking. I mean, the number of rounds affects it, but I just put in the schedule of all the games that are going to be played.
But okay, after the first round, say Vaishali wins, she's going to gain a few rating points. But you're not giving extra weight to it because it's the candidates, right? It's just that her live rating is now higher.
Correct. Yeah.
And her score is higher.
Yeah. I adjust as the tournament goes on by using live rating each time I run the simulation. And the score, of course, being the biggest factor. If you're in the lead, in the middle of a tournament, your odds of winning are a lot better than they were at the beginning. So, but yeah, I don't have any unique adjustment for the candidates versus how I simulate any other tournament. So yeah, round by round, live ratings I'll update as a way to give a little head nod towards form, but also I think over adjusting for form is a temptation that doesn't make much statistical sense. I think I don't want to overreact to early results.
Yeah.
I've seen so many tournaments over the years where someone gets off to a hot start and then falls back to the pack. If you want to use statistics lingo, regression to the mean is a thing. So just because someone started out hot, that doesn't mean we should necessarily assume their later rounds will be better than we initially thought. They're probably still going to play the same later rounds they were initially supposed to, more likely than not.
Cool. Sounds good. So do you know how often you're, of course we can and should all follow you on X/Twitter. And do you know how often you'll be sharing updates with chess.com?
So I don't know exactly right now what that schedule is going to look like. I know that I'm in chat with the article writers, so I won't be directly writing any of the news articles that use my numbers, but I will be constantly sharing them in company chats with the people who are. Tarje in particular, I think is going to write a lot of those and is working on a candidates preview right now that will be largely driven by my numbers. And then, as it goes on, I'll be feeding numbers into the recaps. And then we haven't yet had the conversation about how we're going to handle the instant update social media side of things. Historically, I've always, when I'm just doing it myself, I post them myself. But now that I'm partnered with chess.com, I might send the numbers to someone and they might post it with a pretty little graphic that I'm beyond my capacity to make with branding on it. It's really fun when I'm able to work with someone with a team that has like graphics people on it, because I'm not a graphics person. I just put out screenshots of my spreadsheets, and it's really nice to see my stats come alive with like pretty shading and all the stuff that graphics people put in there. So it might be that chess.com will be tweeting my results after each round, and then but whatever ends up out there, whether it's articles, whether I'm authorized to post it myself, whether they want to post it through official channels, I'll be retweeting anything that comes out. So if you follow my account, you'll still find all the places my data lands. But exactly what that schedule will look like is an internal conversation we'll still have between now and when the tournament starts.
Okay. Well, can't wait for the tournament. And Tai, it's always a pleasure to pick your brain and hear your numbers. And I encourage everyone to follow Tai as the tournament unfolds. Any final thoughts before we get to counting the days until April 4th, Tai?
I think counting the days is the absolute most important thing, because I cannot wait for this tournament. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, should be fun. Okay. Thanks a lot, Tai. Appreciate it as always.
Absolutely. Always great to be here.
And we are here with On the Queen Side, who does absolutely incredible coverage of women's chess events in particular, especially on Twitter/X, but more recently also on the Lichess blog. So highly recommend that you follow them and check them out. And I'm excited to welcome them to the pod. Welcome to On the Queen Side.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for the women's candidates too. And this is the first time in the history of the FIDE candidates cycle where they'll be running the women's candidates and the men's candidates concurrently in the same venue. So I was just curious, as someone who follows women's chess very closely, there's been some debate back and forth about the relative merits of this approach. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction to get people to think of like the top players overall and the top women as like equally important. Like you already see them the way, to me, like the best women's, the most successful women's sport in the world right now, in terms of popularity, is tennis. And if you look at the Grand Slams there, they have the men playing, they have the women playing, and they give them pretty equal billing. So I really like that FIDE did this. I think if they want people to be interested in women's chess, and if they want girls or women watching this to think that they're important in the chess world too, then it's the right way to go. I don't think it's automatically going to work out though, because they have to do it right. Like in tennis, it's like you have like the men's singles and the women's singles, but then you also have like the men's doubles, the women's doubles also going on. Nobody really pays attention to the doubles like they pay attention to singles. That's because they don't market it that way. They market the singles best. So if they do this well, where they market the overall candidates and the women's candidates, like they show to the viewers that they're important, then it's great. If they don't do that though, and they show like, okay, we're gonna 90% focus on the top, the men, then it could be the opposite though. It could give them it could give the opposite impression to people. So I definitely like that they're doing it, and I hope they do a good job with it. If they do a good job with it, then it's great.
Yeah, that makes sense. And would you be in favor? So as it is now, they're running at the same time. Now, obviously, there might be cost or logistical difficulties where if it were at the same venue, but say earlier in the day. But if that were economically and logistically feasible, do you think it would be even better to stagger the times? It's only, 4 games in the Open, 4 games in the Women. So even if they run them together, it's only 8 games in total. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think if it's pretty tough in chess because the games are so long. It's kind of hard to stagger them.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's certainly worth trying. I'm in favor of trying things, seeing this way FIDE will have some data, be able to tell if there's more interest in the candidates when it's running concurrently in the women's candidates. So we will see. But in the meantime, I'm excited for the event. Now, is there anyone in particular you're excited to watch play?
I'm definitely excited to see Vaishali and see Nurgal Salimova play, because they're both young and up and coming players. The last edition of the last time we had the women's candidates, there were no up and coming players in the field. Everyone was pretty established already. So it's cool that this time around they're giving the younger players who haven't quite established themselves in the world elite. They're still giving them they still get the chance.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they had to earn the chance, but yeah, I agree, and it's cool how it kind of echoes the Open candidates, where you have both the older generation and the young guard, and obviously, you mentioned Vaishali, like it even goes so deep as to have 2 siblings playing in the candidates for the first time together, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I definitely like that. One of the reasons I think it's great is because we've definitely seen like the older generation for the women that they've had like their grip on the being on who's the top players. Like if you look at who's the like the top 10 in the world right now, they're pretty much all like they're pretty much mostly 30 or older. So it's good to see some younger players that hopefully will be in the top 10 in the near future.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sure that this is only the beginning. Do you think that these players, that Vaishali and Salimova, do you think if things go right for them, they could potentially win, or is it not quite their time yet?
I don't think it's quite their time yet. But if Vaishali does play as well as she did in the Qatar Masters or the Grand Swiss where she won, I think she would have a chance to contend for the World Championship match spot. I don't know if I expect her to do that, but but if she shows that level, definitely she's capable of it.
Yeah, you definitely get that sense with how strong she's been recently that maybe it could be one of those cases where, okay, maybe she's rated 2480, the top seeds are 2550, but maybe it's these cases where she took a leap in strength and the rating hasn't quite caught up. And there's only one way to find out. Now, you did an excellent blog post previewing the Reykjavik Open, which is ongoing as we record this. Will probably be over by the time this comes out. But obviously, there have been a lot of streamers covering the Reykjavik Open, and predominantly female streamers, and the organizers do an amazing job facilitating interest in the tournament by encouraging live cams and encouraging the streamers to share their stories. And but I, in following that tournament, was surprised to see Salamova playing, being that, I mean, obviously it's good to remain active even as big tournaments approach. But this one, the candidates, is so close. Were you surprised to see Salamova playing chess in Reykjavik?
I wasn't so surprised. I think it's good that the players are actually playing, especially the younger ones. She has tournament's gonna finish, I think, 2 weeks before the candidate starts. So hopefully she does have some time to get to Canada and get there reasonably early. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else she's been working on the past few months, but yeah, if she's been training a lot. I know the players especially the younger players, at least like Nurgal and Vaishali, they're used to playing a lot. They pretty much play every month or at least every other month. So to go through, if they really were to go 3 months or 4 months without a classical tournament and show up to the candidates, I don't think they'd be ready for it. So I'm glad that both Vaishali and Nurgal got in the tournament this month. Yeah, if you look at things who's played recently, the younger players and the older players took the opposite approach. None of the older players have played the tournament yet this year, except for Humpy played one, but the rest haven't really been active. But and then even Nurgal and Vaishali, they've only played one tournament this year. So I actually looked at it the opposite way. I would have liked to see Vaishali and Nurgal play more tournaments in the lead up to the candidates, but maybe they didn't do it because they were too busy training.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, presumably the veterans who are getting ready for the candidates are playing some training games and stuff like that. But I wonder, I feel like you can't mimic the feeling of actual competition. So you do raise some valid points. And so this segment will be coming third in the pod, and I've already discussed the women's candidates a bit with Grandmaster Rafael Leitao and with Tai, aka Chess by the Numbers. But nonetheless, I got to ask you for a pick. Now, feel free to duck it. We all know that these predictions are kind of silly. No one can tell the future. These players are very evenly matched. But nonetheless, if you were forced to pick a winner out of Leitao, Lagno, Goryachkina, Salamova, Muzichuk, Vaishali, Tan Zhongyi, and Kaneru Humpy, who do you think is most likely to emerge to play for the World Championship?
Definitely I'm going with Leitao again. Yeah, she showed that she was pretty dominant last time, and I don't know what she's been doing the past since the World Championship match. She hasn't played any tournaments, but I'm gonna assume that she's been. If you look at the candidates last time, she also didn't play any tournaments the previous 10 months, and she was still able to win it. So here we are again. She hasn't played any classical events in 10 months, but I assume she's training. So if she is, then I'd bet on her to win.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I'm on the record having picked Goryachkina, as was Rafael, so we'll see who emerges. But obviously, they both can win.
Yeah,
so
I think it would be if I had to give odds, I'd say 90% chance one of Leitao or Goryachkina is going to win. I'd be really surprised if any if any of the other players could do it.
Yeah,
cool.
and Ju and June. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it would be cool to see someone pull off an upset, but I think it's clear who the favorites are, and at least if you also want to see a good World Championship match, I think Leitao and Goriatskin are the only ones that could really challenge Ju and Jun at this stage. So.
Unless Vaishali just explodes.
Yeah,
but,
maybe.
But,
or
yeah.
maybe if anyone else, then probably Vaishali, because she could rise up pretty quickly. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm going with.
Okay, and my final question.
I don't think she's too happy with losing the last World Championship match.
Yeah. Hard to blame her. Yeah, and my final question is just, obviously you're doing great work helping people follow women's chess. For anyone listening who's maybe on the fence or hasn't been as interested in the past, what would you say, whether it be about this tournament in particular or about general women's professional chess, that might entice them to follow it?
I think this tournament's definitely a good place to start, because you have the veteran top players, and you have these younger players as well. Especially if you haven't been watching women's chess at all, but you've been watching like Praggnanandhaa, but Vaishali's been right there the whole time, doing like pretty much identical things to what Pragg has been doing, like almost too identical with like the Olympiad medals, or like they have like almost the exact same world ranking. So I know like a lot of people, including me, are excited to see Pragg go after the World Championship. Vaishali's right there too, going after the Women's World Championship. And it's exciting to watch her do it.
Yep. And it's exciting indeed. So April 4th, and I assume you will be following it and occasionally tweeting on Twitter/X, tweeting/Xing, or whatever they call it now.
I will be following it, and I will be tweeting, and more than occasionally I'll be tweeting. You will see lots of tweets from me.
Okay, glad to hear it. And yeah, thanks for weighing in, and yeah, excited for the event.
Thanks, Ben.